Hello and welcome to the Dust Nostalgia Podcast, episode 12. As usual, I'm your host, Anatoly, and tonight I have another very special guest here via the magic of the internet for your listening pleasure. Young lady, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Natalie Juhasz, also known as Resulka. I used to Let's Play, and now I'm sort of trying to get into game design. And, yeah.
Oh, pleasure to have you. Well, before we reveal, I said reveal, it's on the, it's written on the website. But before we reveal our topic, can you tell us what was your first experience with a, IBM PC or compatible?
Alright, well, it was my 7th birthday. My dad said, I'm buying a computer. And I remember so clearly being in the room that we were cleaning up to be the computer room, wearing a white dress, saying, oh my god, this is going to be amazing. And then that night we played Seventh Guest, the entire family, all together, and finished it.
Wow, really?
Yes.
That's pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie. The microscope puzzle, no one else in the family could solve. I just said, can I have a go? And I got it through on my first try. Holy crap.
I'm like an idiot savant of a 7-year-old. I wish I was still that smart.
That's pretty impressive. I don't think I can finish the 7th Guest on my own. Nor do I have any desire to, but that's a whole different story. Alright, let's move on from me hating on early puzzle adventures and move on to our topic. Well, actually, before we start on our topic, I would like to give some historical background for people who might be younger. All right, let's do that. So, back in the day, when there was no internet, and there were no video streaming services, or anything else for that matter, right now kids are really, really lucky because porn is flowing free throughout the World Wide Web. Well, back in the day, that was not the case, and because of that,
there was no meat and fuck.
No,
there was no meat.
And so back in the day, there were really very few occasions where you could see some sort of a nudity or whatever on your computer. So we are here to discuss pretty much that era and how it pertains to games. And before we start, I also would like to say that we're not going to be discussing things like Leisure Suit Larry and the likes, because they're not porn games. They're not.
No, they are the gateway drug though in terms of these.
I guess, but at the same time, all of it is rather innocent. Like just a bunch of corny jokes and just sort of a lot of winking and just it's not what this topic is about. Also, if you listen to this and there are any children or sensitive family members around, please get them out of the room.
Although, that being said, you and I both had very early introduction to these style of games. As much as we're not talking about Leisure Suit Larry, I did steal that game from a multi-pack when I was 8. So that's how I got into it. No,
I played Leisure Suit Larry freely. That was never an issue. For me,
I used to play Leisure Suit Larry 1 at sleepover parties in groups of girls. Mm-hmm. We would just replay the phone call thing.
That's pretty funny.
Who could come up with the best bad lib?
The best ones? So is that you were the winner and that's what you carried for the rest of your life?
Yeah, that's how Ubu the Clown came about.
Yours is pretty creative, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Alright, so okay, so DOS, porn games, all kinds of just sort of more than jokes. We're not going to look at things that are jokey. We're going to look at things that are maybe not exactly porn, but more, less games and more just titillation, as I guess is what we're aiming at. So all those products and those, I would say all those things still exist. Those are well preserved on the internet, right? Isn't that funny? Yeah. How a lot of games have disappeared into just complete obscurity. Good games, nonetheless, or just very interesting games. But porn games, due to their nature, have been well preserved. Even the shittiest of porn games have been very well preserved online. So thank goodness for that in one way or another. So where do we start?
Oh, well, I think probably in terms of, because I'm from Australia and like we didn't have internet for a long
Mm-hmm.
time. Like I remember having to go to one of my dad's friends, work friends' place to actually download a walkthrough of Lorabo 2 because we were stuck in the last chapter. But which I still actually have the printout of. I preserved it for all time. It is my first experience with the internet. But when I went to high school at an all girls high school, we had free internet. Like we had free internet there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was part of the laptop class. So I would actually stay after school and just troll through shareware websites and like Home of the Underdogs. And I started accruing all these, really old looking porn games because I was like, well, I like Leisure Suit Larry. I've already given Leisure Suit Larry to every single girl in our class. Let's see what else I could find and pass on.
All right. So what were the first titles you've discovered?
Well, it would probably be the Interactive Girls Club.
Yeah, right. That seems to be the thing around that sort of time.
Yeah,
and to me, it's like a very sort of personal kind of thing because like I still as much as I like kind of I sort of look down on many of those games. I still have a good laugh at the Interactive Girls Club games. I can't hate on them, just
well,
because.
Yeah, in a way, they kind of really are the precursor to the Meat and Fuck games. I have a feeling that if you ask the people that came up with Meat and Fuck, you'd say,
right,
yeah, I played Interactive Girls Club.
Well, even like in Russia in like late 90s, early 2000s, they became those. They started making those. It was one of the big publishers started making those sort of dating game simulators, and they were all FMV too, so they were strikingly similar to Interactive Girls Club. So I would say yes, they are like the real precursor, one of them. So why don't we just go over those briefly? In fact, I do not know the order that they have been released, but I think I can guess the order that they have been released in, and it's actually a very interesting thing because it was a British company, right? Interactive Girls Club. They released a few games within pretty short time span.
They look like they're all from around the same period.
They are. They actually because they got shut down very quickly. That's what happens. Apparently, what happened is that company didn't, due to the nature of their product, didn't comply with some kind of British regulations, and they were essentially shut down to never be heard again. But the idea is that they. Let's get the first one out of there because I'm pretty sure the first release ever is also the most useless title of theirs, which is called Adult Cameraman.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And that one is just bizarre. The releases of those games were so rare, but they were so widely pirated that now it's really hard to track down what came bundled with what. But I think Adult Cameraman was bundled with like this game called Foreplay.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense.
I even think it's the same girl too. I'm not too sure. But yeah, Foreplay is really easy. You have a picture of a girl. You have to click on her body parts. You have to guess. You have to guess the order. And if you guess the order correctly, there's like a temperature meter that rises, and the more it rises, the more clothes she takes off. And that game is over in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's it. And Adult Cameraman is even more stupid. You pick, I think, 3 pictures of the same girl, and you pick out the videotape. You have like I think several save slots, and then you have an ability with your mouse to move around that image and zoom in and out. And by zooming in and out, for people not familiar, like imagine how zooming in and out on like 100 by like 120 picture was in 1993.
It was not pretty.
No, not at all. And your movements would be recorded, and you can play them back for some reason. It makes no sense. It's just baffling. But I guess it was enough for them to release it because it led to a small string of the very memorable
Oh yeah.
Sort of simulators, I guess. Which I think the first one was probably Vida, right? Because it's the
Yeah.
simplest one and actually doesn't even have the subtitle. I think it's just called Vida X.
Yeah. Vita's actually my favorite out of the collection.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. They just so either it's the fact that she's a redhead or just that she's so trusting.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like it's weird. Basically, what you have is you have those digitized. They wrote their own engine, which is kind of like a presentation software, basically, where you would have interactive parts on the screen, either like dialogue choices or items that you could click on, while the sort of digitized pictures and animations played out. Very little animation, more just sort of changes in backgrounds and pictures. And they got those British models to actually be in those games. Of which I mean, Joe Guest was pretty big around that
Yeah,
time. She was the
she
actual
was.
famous one. I'm sure the other ones were famous too, but I've never seen them or heard of them before. But I heard of Joe Guest. But the story of that game is you meet the woman in the restaurant, you get her drunk, you pretend to be
Photographer.
a photographer while you are actually like a secret agent of some sort, and that's pretty much where the game ends.
And in a way, she's actually kind of like out of the three of them, it's the most likely situation that would actually happen, I would say.
Yes, she seems to be the most human, right?
Yeah.
It is, I guess, true. It is like a actually drunk, horny human being. Versus, I don't even know what's going on. Well, Teresa is just like a nutcase, and
Yeah.
Joe Guest. In Joe Guest, there's even like it's a plot point that she has like a personality split, which is really weird. But yeah, that is it. You get a girl drunk, and and the game ends. Like you have some nudity. You just take pictures, and as long as all you have to do is just select the right thing at the right time. If you select the wrong thing, in Vita, that usually almost instantly leads to game over. Sometimes in those games, in later games you actually have a chance to either back out or just not, still progress while not having like such a succession rate. But in Vita, basically, wrong move means you're done, which makes it also really easy to play because you just keep replaying it until you're done.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And actually, in a way, that's actually quite lifelike because most of the time, once a woman writes you off, that's it. She's
Pretty much.
In a one night stand situation, maybe like in the overall scheme, there may be some redemption. But
I guess that is a good point. Yeah, Vita does seem to be the most human of the bunch. Anything else you want to add about that one?
Not really.
Yeah, that's it. So I guess
I like her dress. There we go. I like her dress.
So do I guess. I like her choice of music.
Oh yeah.
And champagne. Yes, so then we're moving on to the second bigger title called Teresa, the House Guest.
Oh, how I hated this one.
It's the most devious out of the bunch because it's kind of difficult to...
Yeah, you're right. She's a cock tease. All she does is just like, I'm in sexy positions and I'm touching my during this
that
corner.
literally happens within like the first minute of the game.
Yeah.
And then she's like half naked like 2 minutes into the game. But then there's this bit where you have to select 3 presents for her. And the choices are like chocolate, love balls, a vibrator, a furry bra. What else?
And there was also
lingerie. Something,
handcuffs.
Yeah, like something like really stupid. It's really weird because you have to, if you want to go for maximum score, you actually have to pick the 3 right ones. And then there's a few times in the game where the game actually like specifically tries to prevent you from winning. And there's also this added element of an alarm clock for no reason whatsoever. But I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of nudity in that game. Like that's like right out of the gate. There's just like including the fact that the story of that game, right? What is this? Let's try to figure out the story of that game. So this girl that man and that girl apparently know each other somehow, right? She came over to stay over for reasons unknown, but she has like a big bag with her, and the fur coat, very nice fur coat. She likes erotic books and erotic movies. and like within like a 30 seconds you looking up her skirt, but then she's
Yeah.
like, "What are you doing? Oh no!"
Well, yeah. Oh.
And
It almost seems to me like she's a prostitute on her day off.
it's, I guess, but like, and then yeah, like she instantly like she starts sleeping naked
In your own bed?
in your bed. Yes, it. Well, they make it a point that you're sleeping on the couch.
Yeah.
But still, you come to wake her up, and she is like, "Oh, look, I'm naked, and no big deal." And you bring her like breakfast, which is like, I forget what you bring her. She like spills it on herself, and then she comes out, and you give her the presents. And if you bought her the right presents, or at least two of the right presents, or maybe even one, I think it's two, you get the happy ending, which is like a big close up, and that's the end of that. And then you have the actual score measuring, where they tell you, while they showing you the score with this animated penis with a face, they also tell you that, you know, AIDS is no joke.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely not.
very subtle.
I totally didn't just giggle.
Yeah, it's that game is weird. Like, not gonna lie, Therese is the one that took me the longest to finish, just because it deliberately misdirects you
Yeah.
quite a few times.
Because really, if a woman comes, I'm not gonna give you all life advice, but the positions, anything that she does in that is at least a permission to continue the potential discussion that something's gonna happen.
Right. Yes. It's a really, like, that's a very, they put you in a very unrealistic situation, to then like almost immediately start shutting you down on everything. It's kind of, it's really weird. But as the years went by, well, not really years, but like I have learned how to beat that game with 100% completion, so I feel proud of myself. Kind of. And it also, I think it also has the best animation and probably the most diverse gameplay, I guess, unless you count the third one. And yeah, I guess, is there anything else you want to add?
No.
Nah, so we're gonna move on to the last Interactive Girls release, which was
Joe Guest in the Milkman.
The Milkman rounds.
Milkman rounds. Because otherwise, just Joe Guest in the Milkman sounds weird.
Yeah, and starring Joan Guest. And there's, I guess, the last game in the so-called trilogy, which I think it tells you by some references to the game, you can realize that you're the same person. So you have been demoted somehow from a secret agent to a milkman.
Oh no, it's just a covert operation.
I guess, and the gameplay is this: you're given a choice of streets, days, and the amount of bottles of milk that you're going to deliver. You can pick all those parameters, and then you present it with a house, and if you pick the right one, something happens, and if you pick the wrong one, nothing happens. Now, half of those parameters mean absolutely nothing. You just have to match up the street with a day, and find out which houses have somebody. And on the most obvious, they have like a little misdirect. There's a customer called Joe Guest, I think, or just Joe, where you show up at that house. She shows up in like is it like a leather outfit or something like that? She's supposed to be like I don't know, like a diamond thief. I don't even know what the story is at that point. And she invites you in. She shows you like a little bit of herself, and then apparently just like whacks you over the head, and that's it. And you just start off with the main menu. But if you picked the right house, which is, I think, is K Nix, and you show up there, you get like a really weird, disturbing piece of dialogue. Joe shows up in a robe, and like she starts taking just the pieces of her clothing, and you presented, that's like I'm trying to build up to my favorite joke in the series. We all know what that is, but it's like I still laugh at it to this day, because you were presented with an option of what to take off, and at this point you can't actually, unlike in Teresa or in Vita, you can't actually lose, because clicking on the wrong thing just she just goes nope, or like try something else, or like why rush for, like if you try to take off your pants, you're like why rush, just take off your socks. So that game is actually very forgiving
Yes.
You
Well,
just
it's kind of hard actually getting
to
it.
figure out. Yeah, it's hard to
Yeah.
figure out which one's which. Basically, you have to try all the combinations until you hit on only those two. There's only two right choices that you can make, and there's plenty of options. So you have to try all the combinations until you get them. But once you get there, it's impossible to lose. And so you're given an option. There's like a little picture of you, the milkman, with a hat and everything. And clicking on things, you remove your articles of clothing. And once you get to your like boxers and you remove them, there's like a little little what do we call
Text
that?
box.
There's like a text box that like a sensor in text box that appears over that picture that says "Look at your own."
Look at your own!
Which I think is fucking hilarious. I laugh about it, and I do. And that's pretty much the end of that game, which actually comes packaged with two bonuses.
Oh yeah, because one of them is the shaving.
The shaving minigame, the infamous shaving minigame, where you just help Joe Guest shave. If you've never actually, dear listeners, if you've never seen those games, download them. Nobody's gonna sue you. Check it out. Those were the days.
For a second there, I thought you were about to say, for dear listeners, if you've never shaved a woman before.
Oh, dear listeners, if you've never shaved a woman before, that would be a good starting point. Not gonna lie. So, but it's bizarre. I want to know what was going on at those meetings at Interactive Girls Club. That those were the bonuses, like the adult cameraman. I have a feeling that the person who came up with adult cameraman probably came up with the shaving minigame, because they both make no sense. And it also comes packaged with like a digital magazine erotic bite, where there's 3 women that you can pick, and you just see the slideshow, and they're like, "We'll be in the next game." Like, call Interactive Girls Club and ask for whichever one of us you want to be in the next game. And ironically, that never happened. Like, for the last game, they went all out. Like a big adventure, like gorgeous graphics, animation and everything, and jokes, and impossible to lose. A bonus minigame, and sort of like animated advertisement. And that's when they got canned. And that was the end of Interactive Girls Club.
Yeah, it was probably even just the fact that Joe Guest was so, popular and well known, that someone went, "Hang on a minute, what are these?"
Yeah, probably, right? I mean, there was supposed to be a sequel. Like, I read up that they really wanted to do a sequel or something. In some places you read, and it even says it exists, but it does not exist. So that's that. I know a lot of people out there actually played those games, because when I like sheepishly posted a few screenshots or whatever, like a few months ago, I actually got some. I got pretty vocal reactions. So if you played any of those games, leave us a comment saying which one was your favorite, or which ones you've hated, or if you finished them all, or if you finished none of them.
And hey, which one of them would you bang in real life? I don't know.
There's that. Yes, let's do this. What is it? Bang, kill, and marry. Which one? Give me that. Give me that combo in the comments.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a bit difficult for me, because even though I like playing these games, I am straight.
Well, I don't know. I also wouldn't want to make that conversation, because they all of them seems to be quite with the exception of Vita, they all seem to be quite psychotic. So I don't even know. I would be.
I would bang and marry Vita, and then I would kill both the other two.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Because one of them clearly has to get institutionalized, and Teresa, you just don't want to do anything with, because it's like, my life is so confusing now.
Imagine marrying her and then being like,
"Oh yeah, I don't even know."
Yeah.
All right, so everybody played those. I guess that's the ones most people will be familiar with. But what else have you just covered?
Well, all right. From the list of things that we were looking at, that I went, "Oh, I haven't actually played that before." One of them was Simusex.
Oh God, yes.
So I actually downloaded this back in the day, but I could not get it to work. I don't know if it's just like the fact that I was trying to get it to run on Windows 95 DOS, but it just would not start. So I only opened it up the other day. I do know that there is one of the really early Meat and Fuck games is actually a direct copy of it. But like in terms of like what actually happens, but the sound effects have to be the funniest thing I've ever heard in this game. So, like, basically, it's just a basic sex simulator. Like, there's, do me, suck me, what's some of the other ones? Backdoor.
Who
the
knows?
Big push.
There's some fingering going on. It's been a while since I looked at it.
Finger bang. That was the last one.
And it's basically what happens. You select the tool, and you have a mouse, and you just move the mouse back and forth as images on the screen animate in those really weird, amateurish way. Yeah. But it is high resolution, and it has apparently hilarious Sound Blaster support, which now quite a few people brought up to me. But I actually have never played the game with the sound, so I don't know. But I am going to now.
Yeah, basically, like, they're so compressed that half the time the woman sounds like a duck. So, like, like, you hear the guy going, oh, and then she goes, ah, ah.
That's pretty funny. I am going to try that out. But the reason...
do me!
the reason why that game stuck around, I guess, is because its kind of claim to fame is that it was allegedly designed and programmed by Tim Sweeney of Epic Games. Yes, Tim Sweeney of Unreal and Gears of War fame. To this day, this has not been confirmed. There is also some evidence that the gay version of this game was also in production at one point. And there's a hilarious ad at the end of it, I think. Did you read the ad where it like promises that the next version is going to be like 3D virtual reality?
Yeah.
And there's some steamy description. I haven't played this game in years, but like I still remember like how steamy the proposed sequel was supposed to be. Well, that never happened. Thank God. But yeah.
But there was one bit that I actually found myself quite impressed with, was that the vibrator one was that if you did put the vibrator in her boobs would jiggle.
Oh yes, yes. I mean, the animation is I guess nice, all things considered, but most of the time it just looks like it's it's high resolution and everything, and there's like a lot of frames and animation, I guess, in the limited interaction that there is, but the figures themselves kind of resemble what like a teenager would draw. In the back of the book, but not like me. Like I'm incapable of drawing, so I would draw stick figures, but no, not like that. But it's still far from being even remotely professional.
The Cunning Lingus one's kind of hilarious in a way because he's just a disembodied head, like Levash.
Well, everything is disembodied. Like it's disembodied penis, disembodied like hand. At least that's what I recall.
Yeah, just because, like, if you don't, like, fully go in for the full motion, it just looks like he's going, like, I'm talking to your vagina.
Oh, that's right, because he opens his mouth, right? It's like, that's the animation that plays out. It's pretty funny. Alright, so there's that one. If you have played this one, let us know what you thought about it. We will not judge you. I swear.
You do have on this list Romantic Encounters on the Dome, but I think we should talk about those maybe a little bit later in terms of also the other games that I tried out. Make them like a threesome of
right.
discussion.
Okay, that's fine. Well, you know what? Let's then get certain things like out of the way. One thing that was very common around that time, because the shareware scene was blooming and apparently it was not hard to do, is various variants of like other games, like puzzle and action games that just had just had tits in them, and some of them were pretty big. Like I remember one Sexonics, which was basically a Zonix, which is also itself is a clone of Quicks. And it's a game where you just like, what's that arcade game, Wall Feed, where where you just cut out pieces. It's a cool arcade game, but it just replaced the backgrounds with naked girls. And the same thing with Porn Pipe, which is Pipe Mania, with Sextris, same thing in the backgrounds. Soko Sex was like a soccer band with nudity. Bomb Axe, not very famous, but it's Bomberman with nudity. Actually, pretty where you play as different sort of. There's like a penis, and instead of the Bomberman, that one is actually really interesting, very cartoony, and actually a good clone of the game. Very humorous. I would actually recommend looking at that one up. Not a lot of people had it because it's not very porny, and I think X-Rock, which was designed by either Japanese or some other Asian company. Basically Tetris with nudity, but it wasn't Tetris. I don't know.
No, it's I'm trying to think what the game's called.
Oh, there is an actual game, because I always thought it was like a unique concept, but I guess it's not.
Yeah. No, it's I'm trying to think. So it's actually not quite the same variant, but there's I'm trying to think. There's it's called Mean Bean Machine. It's got a couple of different versions. So basically, like it's just it's Connect 4 basically.
But
when I say, I don't mean like Connect 4 like the board game. I mean like you have to connect 4 things together that are the same color clear.
Yeah, you get those sort of X shapes of like 5 balls of different color, and they drop Tetris style, and you connect 4 and they clear out. So there's that. But the one I played the most of those sort of varieties, none of those games are really, they don't really deserve attention because they're just cheap grabs, and most of those just like the pictures were scanned from some kind of magazine and put in as backgrounds that would reveal itself. Nothing clever, nothing interesting really. But Image Line's Porntress was the one that I've played, mostly because as you've played on the right side of the screen, the more lines you cleared, like a GIF style animated multi-panel porn clip would actually reveal itself in a very sort of distracting way. It was sort of weird because in order to win, you had to concentrate on the playing field, because it's Tetris, and Tetris can get quite intense, and the speed actually doubled each time. So by the last level, it was pretty hardcore, even Tetris wise. And I'm pretty good at Tetris.
So much.
But because the motion was kind of how would I put it, like jarring, there would like be a delay between the frames, between like the full loop. Like there would be like a few frames of a loop, and then it would stop and it would resume. It would catch your eye, at least mine. I have, maybe it's because I have like really bad ADD, but like it's like like you would end. The interest was there because like starting level 2, there's this big sort of image, and as it starts getting revealed by only a few lines, you keep looking at it like there's some bodies involved there, but you're not quite sure what's going on until you reveal more. So it was very distracting from Tetris, and but I was always impressed that there was some animated actual porn. Let me tell you, that's one of those games that did not really trick you in any way. It was called Porntress, and it's exactly what it was. And I'm also still to this day surprised by the explicitness of some of those clips. I mean, like, like right in the first screen, like there's like a gangbang going on, and
they were pretty much every single one of them was like a gangbang. There was even one that
well,
was
the
like
second level, it's like dude and the girl doing the girl with the strap on, and I was just like,
no, well that's level 3. I know this because I played that the other day.
Yeah, all right, well, whatever. It's all getting mixed up in my head, but I do remember the images because I was like, for my young impressionable mind, it was pretty bizarre, like how explicit those clips were. So thumbs up for Porntress. Good on Image Line. It looked good, it played well, it's a good Tetris clone, and not only was animated porn, but there was also like a different girl in the background each time as well.
Although I did really I laughed when I saw, I think it's the last one where it's actually got the I can't remember the name of the company, but their logo in the background, and I'm just like, so obviously they've recorded this themselves and then said, how can we give this to people? Let's make a game.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So there is that one. Any more like that you know of?
Well, I would almost in a way include the strip poker games into this.
Oh yeah.
Just like they're all different variants on play a game, get a reward.
Yeah, I guess. I never cared. I it's probably a good time for me to say that. Even though I was excited by the prospect of nudity in games, it's still not excited enough to learn how to play poker. Still to this day, I don't know how to do this. So needless to say, I was shit at those games, and I don't care about them. But there were certainly a lot of strip poker games.
Yeah,
for
that's actually
us.
how I learned how to play strip poker. So
Well, I mean, good on you, but I wasn't gonna bother. I'm not a very gambling person to begin with, so maybe that's really what kept me away from it. But I just didn't want to learn how to play poker. But I always saw those games. There was plenty. It was with like all kinds of crazy numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4. There's quite a lot of variants. Also, just for the most part, digitized pictures. Not even animated. But one really stands out. We were talking about this earlier.
Teenage Queen?
Yes, Teenage Queen by a French company that became known as Cryo Interactive. So I think it was around the same time that they released. I think it was around the same time as they released the Chamber of Psy Mutant Priestess that came out, and it's a strip poker game, but it's like a comic booky animated one.
Yeah.
That sets it apart, I guess. But I also have not played it. Anything else is interesting about it besides stylistic choices?
Not from the various variations, but I will include a honorary mention to a game called Sexcapades, which is actually like a board game simulator, which you're supposed to play in a group of 2 to 8 people. And I'm just saying, if you manage to play this game with 8 people, they all have to be really
you got some
into each
fucked
other.
Up friends.
Like, you're not friends, you're saying who gets to do what first. So
go on.
Okay, so basically, you don't even. There's no real skill in the game. The game just plays it out for itself, and like occasionally says things like, oh, bitch, why don't you lick that guy's shoulder? And so it's just basically like a daring game, except the fact that even though like all the suggestions that they've been making have been kind of very placid, we never I played this the other day with a friend of mine, a gay friend of mine, so I don't know why we picked that we were lesbians, but we played it and like we never found anything bigger than lick this person's ear. But the film clips that play during these moments are all really graphic. Like, like you're telling me to kiss this person on the mouth, and yet the image that's going with it is a boob bouncing against a vagina. Come on, man. And like just underneath it says, you can't do this yet, but you will.
That's pretty funny. I have never played that title, and I will check it out at some point in the future because I'm actually surprised I missed that one somehow.
Yeah, and the majority of the clips for the ladies, and in any case, it's actually like they're obviously ripped from some VHS porn, but it seems to be these 2 older ladies as well. It's not even like there's a couple of younger ladies, but these women keep coming back in various different positions and scenarios that it just makes me laugh.
Maybe I won't look it up.
Well, I didn't check out the other sexualities, so.
All right. So what else?
Have you ever played the Dr. Ruth's game of good sex?
No, I have not. Again, like that early on, I even had trouble with Interactive Girls Club because of the language barrier. That was like most of my, even very close to my adventure game experiences. Like I would play these games. Well, adventure games I would mostly play by myself, but these games, like especially Interactive Girls Club games, I would play with my friends with like a giant dictionary on my lap, try to translate this word, which obviously is, if you can't tell from the vocabulary of those games, would not really help me much.
No.
Yeah, it was pretty difficult. So needless to say, all of those sort of like if you played many like sort of text-based like early like like 80s 90s, well I guess 80s mostly, porn games, please go ahead because my experiences with them are very, very limited.
Yeah. So Dr. Ruth's game of good sex, actually it's more of a quiz. So it's you and another person where like the 2 of you have to see which one of you knows more about sex. Except it doesn't really seem to be all that kinky. It's more about like how the body works. And actually, in a way, it's very up to date, except it got like, you know, things about the clitoris wrong. But, you know, they didn't really discover a whole heap of things about that until, you know, the recent years.
Right.
So it's, yeah. By the way, it's a honeycomb. It runs out throughout the entire vagina.
I've seen that documentary, I think.
Mostly Dr. Ruth's game, you know, it's still statistically correct. It kind of, you know, helps you work out. I don't know if it helps you work that out, but it's just sort of like, you know, if you get it wrong, it at least explains why you got it wrong. So, like, they're just, like, general, like, health questions, like, you know, orgasms do not cut down your life expectancy.
Okay.
So, but there's a couple of, like, you know, like, situational things, like, you know, you've bought lingerie for your wife and she refuses to wear it. What do you do with the lingerie? And, like, it's got, like, 4 answers and, like...
Is one of those choices... Please tell me one of the choices is put them on.
Yes!
Yes,
and that's
awesome.
That's the one I went with, and they said, no, that's not what you're supposed to do.
What?
Like,
That's what I thought you were supposed to do. That'd be my go-to. That's my go-to. Yeah. That is still my go-to. I don't care what Dr. Ruth says.
Yeah, fuck Dr. Ruth. But, like, her thing was like, no, just put it in her drawer, and then maybe she'll see it one day and be inspired.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Which, you know, I guess that could happen, but...
I see Dr. Ruth is pretty repressed, from what I can tell.
Yeah, but putting it on, you know, kind of breaks down the you know, if I'm willing to wear it, why aren't you? So what that reminded me of was there's a section of a game called Romantic Encounters at the Dome in 1988 that they had a puzzle, like a quiz section as well. But I never got that right. Did you ever get it right?
No, again, my experience with it, I haven't really played Romantic Encounters at the Dome that much. Maybe I should now that I actually can play it. But if you feel like talking about that game, you should. You can find out what a misery of woe it is. Yeah, I've read Richard Cobbett's crap shit on it. So
yeah, and that doesn't even cover like the full grimness of the entire situation.
All right, so go ahead.
Okay, so Romantic Encounters at the Dome. Actually, I'm told the Amiga one actually kind of looks pretty, like it's got graphics in it, but I played the DOS version, so it's just text.
Well, it's also very early on. Let's not forget that game came out in '88. Yes, so it's pretty old.
That's why I was kind of surprised when I found out the Amiga one had like images, and I was like, "Whoa, those actually look decent." But in any case, you enter the Dome. Apparently, it's this place that anything sexually can happen. You've just got to meet someone and make something happen. All your dreams will come true. But generally what you want to do when you get in there is get into the elevator and go up to the bar level. But the most annoying thing is that every time you go into the elevator, your character goes, "There's no button. How do I hit the button?" So, like, every single time you have to go through this 8 response thing of not being able to use the frickin' elevator, then suddenly go, I just have to speak the level. There is no skipping for it. But probably that's the reason why when you actually start the game, it actually says God mode so that you can jump to different places straight away. It's probably like, we know this is difficult. If you just want to get into a scenario, just get there. But you go up to this bar level, and depending on your interactions, you end up meeting one of... Oh, well, you can be male or female, but you end up meeting maybe, like, one of 8 people. And whether or not you're successful enough to go back to them to a place, like, your game can end pretty much straight away if they don't like you. But in which case, you leave the Dome feeling sexually defeated and... unsatisfied, basically. You think about, you know, like what more you could have done. But the thing is that in terms of the actual sexual encounters themselves, only about 2 of the females ones is positive. The rest are like this grim reality of having a one-night stand with a man, because like most of them is either there's rape, there's you weren't very good, so I'm just going to do something to you, which I suppose that's in a way rape in itself, but, you know, after consent. And then there's the grimmer ones where you, you're the person that you're having sex with dies while you're on top of them after ODing on drugs. And, you know, and in which case you think, oh yeah, maybe I should go ask security or something. But the moment that you realize he's dead, your character just leaves. Like, she literally goes out to the elevator, goes down to her car, and drives away and hopes that there was no footage of her on the security cameras. I'm told. I believe, like, I'm pretty sure I've played the scenario, but I can't remember it very well, where you actually get murdered as well.
Oh man, that game was all sunshine, huh?
Yeah, and there's of the positive ones for the women, there's like one which is like, you know, it was a successful one night stand. You had fun, he had fun. You're never gonna see each other again. And then the other one is just basically, we're in love forever. We're gonna get married and everything. And the men, they do also have rather grim scenarios as well, but I think it's only like maybe 3 of the 8 are all that negative. So.
Right.
So he doesn't, the guy who wrote it doesn't just hate women, but he really hates women.
I see. Well, maybe it's a good thing I didn't play that game. If you, dear listeners, played that game, leave us a comment and what you thought. And did you think it was hot? Any more sort of like text adventure / interactive fiction?
Yes.
Erotic titles.
I only started playing these the other day.
Okay.
The first one that I'll mention will be, well, actually, this one actually isn't a text adventure. It's a really early, like, gay title called Butt Slam.
Oh god, yes. I've seen that one.
Yeah. Did you play it or did you just watch?
No, I have seen only screenshots on the abandonware website.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me because it looks hilarious.
Well, that literally is the entire game.
Okay. I see now.
It's a two-player game where one person is running away from the other because one has a really big butt and the other one has a 15-inch dick.
Yes. That's it. That's it, right?
Yeah, so and the game literally ends if player 1, who is the guy with the big dick, gets the guy with the big butt.
Right.
And there's just this, like, I even posted it on Twitter. It's just this screenshot of, like, the penetration, and there's just this little poop between them now. It doesn't make any sense.
Interesting.
But probably the most kinky thing about it is the instructions screen, because it actually talks about the whole it talks about, like, what is actually going on. And it's like, oh, Brad was new in town, and then he met Fred. Fred had a 15-year-old, not a 15-year-old, had a 15-inch dong that made people tremble when they saw it.
That sounds hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, so, and that was literally the game, and I was just like, wow, you know, that's kind of disappointing from a game called Butt Slam. I mean, I suppose the butt slamming did happen.
Right.
But... But, you know, for a name that evocative, I would have expected a little more. Grow up, Butt Slam! Come back to me when you have full, you know, animation.
Butt Slam 2.
Butt Slam 2.
It's coming. That's a subtitle. Okay, so what else?
I'm just trying to think. There's, of course, Susan. Which I think it's Essential Adventure. It's one of the two. Basically, this actually comes with, no, I wouldn't call it grim, but the most pathetic disclaimer at the beginning, where it's like, I wrote a game about Susan, a woman I know in real life that I've never been able to get with.
Yeah,
I
okay.
yeah.
So what do
I have
you do
given
with Susan in that game, dare I ask?
well, let me just finish the disclaimer.
Okay.
I have given Susan a full printout of the game, and she has approved it for for distribution.
Oh, so maybe not too bad then.
Well, it's really difficult. I couldn't finish it, but basically, it's you get a whole group of things for Susan, and then give Susan the items, and then you hope to get a bit further with her. Like the first thing is that you go and see her, and then she's like, "I need Coke. I'm so thirsty." So of course, like to get a Coke, you must leave your house, leave Susan's house, go all the way to your house, go into your fridge and get that.
Right.
And then you return and she's happy with that. And then she then you try and kiss her and she's like, "I don't want to kiss. You're not wearing a condom."
That's how it works, people. That's what I've learned in life. The only place to get a Coke is in your fridge, obviously. And kissing without condoms, I think they teach something like that, something about it in school. I'm pretty sure. I see. That's another title I've never played.
But basically, I couldn't find the condom. Like, I found a rusty crowbar in a city dumpster. For some reason, there was a construction site next to my house that I entered, and then I got lost in. Like, I literally could not get out of this maze. And I've tried to play it like 3 or 4 times to see if there's anything I could have missed, but I can't do it. I need a walkthrough, and I can't find one. It's so hard to find walkthroughs for really early porn games.
I feel your pain.
Yeah.
Alright.
And then
yes.
The last one, oh no, not the last one, but another one I tried was called Granny's Place, which is apparently
an amazing title.
It's an amazing title, especially when the next part of it is like Granny's Place, a very warm and comforting place for a man with tight balls.
Best subtitle ever.
Yeah, so basically it's a brothel. But it's really empty, like, you know, like you walk around.
It's not full of grannies?
No, it's not full of grannies. I actually never met Granny. I tried to find her, but the most I found was there was a woman called Fifi that I found, and I was like, "Talk to Fifi." I can't talk to Fifi. This is like, and then so like I was trying to touch her, I was trying to kiss her, I was just trying to see how I could interact with her, and like nothing was working. So I just said, "Fuck Fifi," and then it's like, "You and Fifi, you know, get into the business," and it's just like, oh my god,
it
can't
says
do anything.
You like it says like, what is it? You posted a screenshot. It was like, you do it to her, she does it to you, every which way but loose. I don't know, like, what's a bit of a tame kind of description for an explicit game called Granny's Castle.
Granny's
Palace, place, whatever the fuck it's called. I don't care.
But yeah, so that was that. What I tried last night was called the Drive-In, where your friend has set you up with a blind date to go to to go to the drive-ins with this woman, and like pretty much you're like just like, so the first thing you need to do is turn on the radio and then take out the loudspeaker from the drive-in and drop it outside, and then you have to try and swoon this woman. And it was just like bizarre because I tried talking to her and then it says, "You can't talk to the girlfriend doesn't speak."
Oh man.
So I was just like, oh, kiss her hand, and she liked that. How gallant, yes. But if I tried to touch her shoulder, she was like, "You are a weird one, aren't you?"
Interesting.
And it like, obviously it wanted me to take off her shirt, but every time I tried to do it, it was saying there wasn't enough room, but I couldn't take her anywhere else. So I don't know. That's just the drive-ins. If anyone can actually solve that, let me know so that I can actually see if anything kinky came out of it. I really doubt it. Like, a lot of these early ones, they're not particularly explicit.
Right.
Like, I think Butt Slam was the most explicit, and that was just the instruction
Also,
screen.
also the most explicit title.
Yeah.
Butt Slam.
Butt Slam.
I would like to cover a bunch of like really shitty games that have
Go ahead.
have nudity in it. Well, first, the game that I'd like to cover is actually a game that I've been on record saying that I like, actually. Mostly because it comes from one of my favorite developers. That's Cocktail Vision's Geisha. Which, they had a bunch of erotic titles designed by a woman,
Yes.
Muriel Tramy. That's one of the first ones, and I will count it as, because we decided we're not really going to talk, or until later, I guess we're not going to mention sort of the not porny games, but in Geisha kind of falls into that thing where it's not an adventure game. It's just a bunch of weird arcade, almost impossible mini games. Some more arcadey, some more adventure-y, and combined in this really surreal plot with some sexy art in there. Cocktail Vision style.
I was really kind of hoping for more after that intro, because I was like, yeah, this could be interesting. And
the
then
intro
I was just
is
like,
the best part.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's it's a bunch of mini games. In the beginning of the game, some doctor combines a woman and the robot, and then you sort of chase after that robot to...
Wait, so she survived? I didn't get that bit.
Yeah, no, she
like,
survived, and then kind of to get you gotta solve. That's when it makes now sense, because you have to sort of solve those puzzles to get closer to her and the villain, the Lubricious Dragon. And yeah, you just play those mini games, and there's also our adventure game bits, which basically you're given one shot at, and if you screw them up, you're gonna put the game in an invincible state until later, that you will not realize. So you're just gonna put yourself in a dead end. The art is nice. Das version,
yeah, I'll give it that.
is inferior. I mean, it's Cocktail Vision, so that's basically what the art is. Sometimes it's really cartoony, sometimes, but there's some sexy bits, some nudity, some breasts here and there, and it's not really kink. I mean, it's just weird. It's a weird game because it's a fucking French game. I will say, for anybody who likes weird games, I would recommend it. It's certainly not a game that you would want to play. Like, I once contemplated streaming it drunk, and I would have probably ended up... It's very frustrating. Some of the arcade bits are almost impossible. So that's one of those titles. But I think it deserves its place in history as an early Cocktail Vision title, which is just as weird as most of their games, just not as polished or playable. I'd say. Another one on that list is the one of the games that time forgot. Please don't look that game up. But it's a game called Immoral Combat.
I tried to find it. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, but did you at least find screenshots?
I did.
Yeah. Okay,
so.
That's what it looks like. I think there's even a clip on YouTube, I think, that you could see to see what it plays like. But it's basically a Wolfenstein clone with it's all black and white, and you fight breasts and penises and butts, and your weapons are just about the same. You just go all over the place, ejaculating on things, and it's just about as silly and as it sounds, but it's not really fun. It's not a good first-person shooter, and it's not really titillating for the reasons. If you do look up videos or screenshots, you will see why. So, my goodness, that game disappeared.
Yeah. My query though is that if you're ejaculating on other dicks, like, that just doesn't, in terms of, the sex part of it, it'd be like, wait, what?
Well, you're supposed to be defeating them, right? I don't know what that game... I don't know who made that game. I don't know why somebody made that game, and I'm just glad... I mean, I know about it, but I'm like, me and like 5 other people. So, I mean, now probably more. I'm not doing that game. I should be burying that game, not talking about it on a podcast, but it does exist. So Let's move on to another title that time forgot. I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's Dan Dolm, which is a platformer starring a naked dude with a huge dick. That looks like somebody made it in like 5th grade. That's about all I can say about it. There isn't much to talk about. Also, I guess moving slightly on, I think mostly from our friendly country, Germany, we have a bunch of those weird management games where now they become actual games with like cartoon porn and occasionally digitized thing. There's a bunch of them. There's one called Dime City.
Yeah, which I actually probably would play again.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like, it's basically like Mad TV. And there's
and I really liked Mad TV.
Yeah, Mad TV it's a bit difficult.
I just wish it wouldn't crash so much.
Yeah, and there's another one that I didn't put on the list, but Richard Cobbett actually did a crap shoot on it. I forget, something with a B, but you run a hospital. Same thing, but all those games essentially, to me, the one that really stands out is not for DOS, but it's one that hit it big, and I think around 97 is Wet, the Sexy Empire, which is the first Lula game, which was exactly the same thing, just a shitty management game with cartoon porn and FMV, and that game got really, really big, at least where I was from and in most of other European countries, enough to spawn quite a few different genre sequels, and Lula as a character became famous, but that's not for DOS, and it was a crap fucking game. It was just awful fucking game. I don't know what people... Maybe Dime City is actually probably the most playable out of all of them. But yeah, nobody played those games until that one, and I don't know why people played that one to begin with. So that is it for those management games. They're almost exclusively distributed in Germany, because most of them are made in Germany. And I think Mad TV is actually a German game, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So there's that. Anything else before we move on to games that are like even less porny?
Well, I thought maybe we could talk about the visual novel style.
Yes. Oh, okay.
There's not much to actually say about that. It's pretty much all the same thing. It's a harem game. If you get the right solutions, you get some nudity. Although because they're all like, the Japanese.
Yeah, it's just like hentai. Sort of, they all look like
hentai
animated GIFs.
Animated GIFs with censored vaginas.
They're all the same. They're still being made, and they're kind of the same from DOS. There's a handful of them for DOS that are famous, and eventually they went on to make just as many for Windows, and but they're always sort of like high resolution, bright colored, kind of like really like limited palette, but limited animation, and always some kind of really crazy plots, multiple women, sex changes, and I don't know. Is there like occasional incest? I don't know. Just all the same shit. It's like again, limited language barrier, I guess it was another reason.
Yeah, well, the same thing happens even like, because when they just translated, most of the time you're like, what? Wait, what are we talking about?
Yeah, it's really.
I don't think
really
that's quite been done
not
correctly.
Well translated, but also I didn't know. Plus, I find those type of. I'm sorry to all the people who have listened to it that are into visual novels or design. No, just design. Visual novels doesn't have to be like adult. Yeah, I played quite a few that weren't. I just don't like those sort of games. They bore me. So, and also needless to say, those kind of like to me that's not my thing. Like sort of like animated GIFs of Japanese cartoons and visual novels that make no sense and are boring. I just never played those. I do know that they exist, and it's the reason why they preserved, because it's kind of like the visual novel is like a niche genre in general, so people who are into that thing sort of try to preserve as many titles of that, which there are quite a few, as I've said.
Yeah, I mean, like there's 3 of them that I'm aware of for DOS era.
Right.
Well, at least those are the ones that are translated, like Seasons of Sakura, Three Sisters Story, True Love.
Mm-hmm.
True Love's probably the one that I played the most, just because it was like the smallest in size that I could download.
Right. Yeah, so there's that. I mean, they're all the same. If you're into that sort of stuff, you might as well check it out. Basically, if you're played any recent visual novels. Just go back just out of interest to see what they look like back then, and you'll be surprised to find out that they didn't look that much different.
They're pretty much identical.
They were always kind of bigger downloads too, despite the fact that they didn't really have much content. I couldn't ever figure out why, but maybe it's like high resolution in the art.
It's basically all the art that's all the different art and the animation with it. And they kind of play hand in hand with the JRPGs. Like
those JRPGs I would actually like to bring up. There's two very notable JRPG English language releases that are that go sort of against our topic. It's sort of just turns out that they're kind of good games with really heavy erotic elements. There's a big one, the 1992's Cobra Mission, which has known as the first hentai game that's translated into English. Have you played that game or watched like a Let's Play or anything?
I played it like maybe I was about 14 when I played that. That one's kind of faded out of my memory, but I feel the same way about the next one as well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Next one probably is not so much, but Cobra Mission is actually this really JRPG light. It's really easy to play, and you're this guy. Also, actually, I think one of the early examples of cursing in games as well, because there's some cursing. Like on occasion, like you get the crap kicked out of it, and he'll be like, "Oh shit," or like assholes. I think they called somebody like he got in the beginning of the game. He got jumped by a bunch of people, and you go to meet the girl. She's like, "Why are you so beat up?" And he's like, "I got jumped by a bunch of assholes," or something like that, or like I got the shit kicked out of me. Something like really loose. But yeah, you're you're like a guy in Cobra City fighting against the thugs that took over the city. You have this female companion who follows you everywhere. You sort of have this sexually tense banter going back and forth, and the battle is really easy because all you do is just click on still pictures. It's very distinctly JRPG, high-resolution graphics, cool music. It's actually a fun game to play just because it's so easy, but it's also unlike anything Western sort of gaming created. And on occasion, the porn elements come in rather heavy, not just with all the... it's mostly just like a naughty adventure game, basically. But there are some heavy porn elements where you actually have to have sex with girls. That's when you send your female companion to wait or something, which is always weird. It's like, leave or whatever, just wait here. And then instead of fighting, you get to sort of the body part clicking. I wouldn't. I mean, it is porny. Actually, like I'm not gonna lie. Like it has those sort of explicit anime images, I guess hentai images, and like a point system based on that and stuff. But the majority, you can't separate the two. You can't. They're so intertwined. But the majority of the game is not actually that. It's more exploring in the proper sort of JRPG fashion.
I've actually seen the game ported over into a Flash version.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm actually not sure where it, who hosts it or anything, but basically, like, a while ago, I was interested in just, like, playing a whole heap of the M&F games, and it was included in the Flash of that torrent that I downloaded. And I was just like, oh, hey, I know this game. So, yeah, if you can find it, you don't have to worry about dealing with the DOS version, I guess.
Interesting. I didn't know that. But also, the American version is actually, from what I understand, is different to the Japanese version. So I'm not really sure what the differences are because I only played the American version. But it's an interesting game. That's actually a game that I would recommend. Because it's funny. It's not like... Even though it is porny, it's not like gross. I mean, it's all kind of really jokey. So it doesn't take itself seriously, which is really, really nice. So it's never creepy. It's more just like bafflingly stupid sometimes, on purpose. So it's all just like a big joke. It's like it's almost like a JRPG parody. But be aware that there is some like explicit animated images in there. So that's really about as much. It's not. It's more like almost a naughty adventure. And then a couple of years after that, there's another big one called Knights of Zentar.
Which actually, technically, it's Knights of Zentar 3 because there was two more
Well, it's
earlier in
not.
the Japanese
It was called
versions.
something else, right? Like it's a bigger game. It's like something Warriors, and it would be like
Yeah.
three Knights of Zentar. Yeah, it's like a subtitle that it took, but they only translated that one game out of the whole series. Or no, I think later on there's more. There's more than the ones that get translated into English, but they're not actually porny, surprisingly, because they stopped
Yeah.
doing that. So. But that's part of that. I'm not familiar with JRPG, so don't hold me to any of this information I just said. But I think I'm somewhat correct. I think it's from a long-running
Yeah.
JRPG series, which also later on had English entries in it. But that's the first one, and that's another very interesting title where I think it's even less porny than Cobra Mission, but in a
but at the same
different
time,
way.
even
Yes,
so,
it's
it's like,
it's also it can get pretty weird.
yeah.
It's explicit in those kind of bafflingly, I don't know,
It's got a lot of
avert ways.
yeah, it's got a lot of fairy tale references.
Yes, but it also has surprisingly as for porn. It also I think it has the parent whatever mode where you can enable it and it actually becomes either not porny at all or a lot less porny. I think it has some kind of a parental control, but as a game itself, it's also a pretty cool JRPG, which also doesn't take itself seriously, and
Yeah,
also,
that's what I really enjoyed playing it.
and
It was a
it
joy.
even makes fun of JRPG tropes, which I enjoy a lot because I'm not a fan of JRPGs. So
Yeah.
it's funny to play the game that doesn't take itself seriously while still actually, it's a very solid game. As I said before, it's one of the entries to a long-running JRPG franchise, I guess. So they knew what they were doing, and then there's some just explicit material here and there
Yeah.
on top, which can
And
be
some of
that
it-
can be
yeah,
quite
some-
shocking sometimes. It's really weird, more weird than shocking, I guess. It depends
Yeah.
on how you process that sort of stuff.
I mean, I've still got like one of the gifts just like it's brandished in my mind for all time now.
Yeah, they kind of come out of nowhere and hit you over the head with most
Yeah.
of those things. You don't see them coming in that sort of cutesy RPG. But yeah, I would say be aware of that one. But I would actually recommend both of those games. Mostly because they're just good games. They're good sort of JRPGs. There's not that many of those on DOS to begin with. So
And hey, if you wanna go with like, if you don't even play the game and just want to see how dirty it is, if you get the copy from, I think it's Old Games SK, they have the photo gallery available straight away.
oh, excellent. But I would
So-
say play those games for actually their
Oh, yeah,
their
definitely.
gameplay value. They're not so. Just be aware that they're porny. But I think personally, I would recommend them as games more than anything else.
Yeah.
So what else? Anything else you have to add today?
Well, there's the Brad Stallion games.
Oh
but
yes. Oh fuck. I almost.
The less said about those games, the better, really.
Pretty much. There's the trilogy. Well, it's actually not a trilogy, but it's a trilogy on DOS because only 3 games came out for DOS.
Yeah. I actually find myself very disappointed in it because like I only played them the other day,
Yeah.
but we had a CD that was called Game Solutions 2, which basically was a DOS version of the UHS system. Which now I'm just sort of like, wow, oh my god, I've got a piece of history or something. But I can't, like, because like some of them I was just like, oh, what games do we have like the questions for? Because maybe it's something that I'll want to get. And I kept seeing the Brad Stallion ones, and I was just like, this sounds like it's an amazing game. Like, I want to know more. And then like playing it, I was just like, what the fuck is this?
It's kind of what was this? What was the company's name? First Choice, was it? No, not First Choice. Or was it First Choice? I don't remember. But basically, this company, that company I guess comprised maybe of 1 or 2 people, released a trilogy of those games from '88 to 1990, and they were Sex Vixens from Space, Planet of Lust, and probably the most famous on DOS at least, Sex Olympics. At least in my opinion, like Sex Olympics seems to be
definitely.
more prominent on like BBSs and websites than the other two. And for good reason, too, because the first two are really shitty and... well, I mean, they're all shitty. But the first two like were really similar and kind of very, very, very basic. And then Sex Olympics kind of has better graphical fidelity, but it's also... They're all just those terrible adventure games.
They are.
That are damn near impossible to play. You would need a walkthrough to actually get anywhere in those games, at least in my opinion. And since I didn't have walkthroughs back then, I never got far in any of them. But they're incredibly frustrating. And again, they look like they've been like the art for a lot of times feels like it's been made by like a 15-year-old. So
Yeah.
they're slightly better on different platforms, but I didn't know that at the time. I mean, all I had were DOS versions, and yeah, I don't know. Do you want to talk about them?
Not really.
Yeah.
Like I said, like from the Oz, it actually sounded really interesting. Like it would be like really involved, and then like like kiss the girl, like literally the word smooch shows up on the screen.
Yeah. They're not very creative, and I don't know, not very porny either. It's just like this weird combination of elements that don't work at all. That's really my impression of Brad's.
Oh, but if you're
games.
feeling tense, just jerk off. Everything's fine.
But anything else we've forgotten?
The Adventures of Melbourne Freebush, but I kind of want to forget that experience.
Yeah. Forget that we ever mentioned that title. Don't go look it up. It's It's a shitty adventure that shouldn't even exist.
It's most definitely not a fun 3D adventure.
No,
what the title screen said.
No, it's like a shitty Sierra ripoff, but not anywhere near even close. I mean, fucking the worst Hugo trilogy game is like a masterpiece of everything.
Oh yeah.
Compared to that one.
I will give it the distinction of having the absolute worst walk cycle I've ever seen in a video game. Not even just like the shape of his body, but just like how he actually walks. It's kind of like he's doing the Hitler troop walk. It is not good. That is not how people walk.
That's pretty hilarious. Well, this is it. See, as dear listeners, as you have heard, we pretty much covered almost. If we left something out, it's probably because it's not worth our attention. But we just
or it's not dolls.
Yeah, in this short time, we covered pretty much all the titles that feature some kind of explicit erotic content for DOS. As you can tell, it wasn't many. It's not like today where you can just porn just flows freely. Back in the day, we had to settle for those mostly below average games.
Those hilarious games.
Sometimes hilarious. We were lucky if they're hilarious, but mostly they're just bad, unfortunately. So that's what the promise of even a little bit of titillation delivered. People bought those games. People actually bought those games. People paid money. I mean, I never did, thank God, but somebody had to pay for those games for them to get pirated, and I'm sure in some cases they were even successful or something or other. Try, I'd say out of the personal interest, with the exception of those games that we actually recommended playing, look up all those titles, like screenshots and whatever, just to see what we had to put up with back in the day. And if you've played any other games that we forgot to mention, please leave us a comment. We'll gladly read and check out more titles from that area.
I always want to know more.
Of course. I mean, it is a piece of history. Again, everything is worth preserving except for maybe
The Adventures of Melbourne Freebush.
yeah, with the exception of that one, which has been preserved online, so now it's permanently there. Everything has its place in history, especially, I guess, when we have to describe that period to our grandchildren and whoever, who will not understand why those things ever existed, but there we are. That's why this podcast exists now, so we can tell those stories personally. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you
for being here.
This was fun.
This was fun.
I even just had fun, being like, I haven't played this for a while. Maybe I should play it again.
I know, right?
Like just
revisiting
playing a whole heap of them in a row.
Right, but it's like it's almost like jumping into a time machine of sorts. Because again, you wouldn't think of playing those games now. but like
no.
revisiting them puts you back. At least to me, that's what like replaying interactive girls club games, especially like puts me almost back in that sort of time period.
Oh my god, it does. It puts me back into like my high school uniform in like hiding in the corner of the library.
Yeah, it's an experience. So if you have played those games, try revisiting them too and see what happens. I would like to hear about it. Well, young lady, thank you for being a guest on my podcast. Before we part, do you want to sort of tell the listeners where they can find you online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at www.twitter.com/Resulka. I also have, I suppose my old website, Resulka.com, still there. Half the videos don't work because of the whole blip shutdown, a whole heap of things, and I haven't gone back to it. But if you enjoy games, who doesn't enjoy games that listens to this podcast?
Hopefully everybody. Oh my god.
Yeah.
If you don't enjoy games and you're listening to this, shut this shit off and go do something with your life. I don't know you. No, everybody's welcome. I'm just kidding.
But the games company that I'm kind of trying to get started is called www.reventuregames.com. We are working on a spiritual successor to Laura Bow called Lorna Baines, where she's poor and and other things. But also, we're currently about to put out a new game that cribs off Eagle Eyes Mysteries, which is just it's what's it called? A coding exercise for me, really. But the idea of that is I'm actually going to open it for the story suggestions to the community, including like the silly things that would actually you'd probably see in Eagle Eyes Mysteries, to like the more hardcore stuff like stories about abuse or rape. I'm sure someone's going to want to write that to be like, I want to see like these children characters deal with that.
Well, there you have it.
All you people are sick puppies, and I love every single one of you.
Yeah, so that's the pitch. You heard it here.
Yeah, that pretty much is my whole raison d'etre. I like porn games. I like kids games. Let's put them together.
Only makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, alrighty. And if you, dear listeners, if any of you have a good topic for DOS Podcast, please contact me or on Twitter or anywhere else. Anywhere you can search for DOS Nostalgia, you can reach me and let me know what your topic is, and you could be here as well talking about it for a historical benefit, hopefully. Alrighty. Well,
we are the Museum of DOS.
Yes, we are. We need one. I don't know. We don't have one, but we're working on building one, at least a virtual one. Alrighty, well, thank you, Natalie, for being a guest on this podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you to all of you listening, and hopefully we'll hear each other again on another episode of the DOS Nostalgia podcast. Remember your roots. Goodbye.